Yo, what is up, Wolf Den? Not even Wolf Den, we're Nicsmas. I'm so used to saying Wolf Den on my other channel. How's it going? Sunday morning. Glorious Sunday morning. Nicsmas Day 3, aka Directions for Acting Like an Adult or Don't Act Like an Asshole. We'll be quick today. I'm gonna zoom through a lot because I gotta open some more loops, and it is Sunday, so I'm gonna be quick. You guys can watch this replay later. Tomorrow begins the brain breaking. It's really gonna require a lot of critical thinking. Again, I told you I'm gonna open a bunch of loops. That's step one here. We're still opening loops. I'm just going to show you some things that hopefully you cannot unsee. And when you cannot unsee it, don't close the loops. Do not rush to Google to go close all your loops. Just sleep on them. It's okay. I'm just asking you for 12 days. For 12 days, let things percolate. Let things percolate. Okay. Nicsmas Day 2 starts soon. Starts now. 6-word update. So do me a favor. Let's see if we find it up here. Drop on, hit your 6-word updates. Hit your 6-word updates. We had some phenomenal 6-word updates. Let's go look at yesterday's really quick. No, we'll just read some of the ones that already came in today. Journal, reflect, repeat. It's too simple. It is. Let me tell you something that most of you are not going to accept as being true. When you realize how simple it is, you're going to feel guilty because you've always been taught you got to work hard, you got to earn it, you got to deserve it. And a lot of people self-sabotage when they realize how easy it is to get what they want, how simple it is. It's not always easy. There's definitely difficult times. There's long nights, there's long weekends. There's also times where you can actually just nap all day long and you feel guilty for it. You feel like you should be doing something. Greatest lie of all time. Doing more stuff is how you get what you want. No, doing more stuff is how you do more stuff. Right? Like, let me ask you a question. If you want a pool in your backyard, are you going to get your pool more efficiently? It's probably a better pool if you use tools like, I don't know, a crane, a tractor, bulldozer, like heavy duty tools? Or are you going to get there faster, more efficiently, and have a better tool if you dig the whole thing with your hands? That's pretty obvious, right? But if you dig it all with your hands, you worked so much harder. Shouldn't then you deserve the pool, right? That's how people think. It really is. Like, I got to work harder for this. It can't be easy. Be a leader, not a savior. That's a good one. Happiness is simple. Let it happen. There you go. Immersion is the fastest integration strategy. Absolutely. I think so anyway. Okay, so let's hit your 6-word updates. We had over 90 again, I believe. Let's see if we can get up there. I know it's Sunday, and I will be quick. Give you guys your Sunday back. I'm not in a rush because the Seahawks moved to Tuesday. Who the hell plays on a Tuesday? Not very happy about that, but I'm not in a rush today. Okay, quote of the day. Our biggest handicap is that humans, we fail to appreciate when bad things don't happen. It's some guy that wrote this mediocre book. It's very short. It's got a lot of typos, called Bumpers. If you don't have bumpers, I'll just show you. You can actually go to nickpetersonbook.com. nickpetersonbook.com, and it will redirect to Amazon for you. All right, so biggest handicap, we fail to appreciate when bad things don't happen. This doesn't seem like a big deal, but if we think about repeat exposure, think about this. You ever had a family member, and I'm sorry if you've heard this before because I do repeat this quite often. You ever had a family member that lost 150 pounds, got off their diabetic medication, and like you throw a party for them? You're just so happy for them everywhere they go. Oh, you look so great. I'm so proud of you. Right? But what about all the family members that never gained 150 pounds in excess to begin with? Do we celebrate them? No. So it's not to say that we shouldn't celebrate when people overcome obstacles. The issue is the incentive is there's a broken incentive loop. We actually get more dopamine hits and we get celebrated and we feel more successful when we dig ourselves in a hole and dig ourselves out, because we get celebrated and we celebrate ourselves every time we dig ourselves out of a hole. Nobody celebrates, and we don't celebrate when we never dig ourselves in a hole in the first place. Right? So if you're looking, man, I really don't feel productive, the fastest way to feel productive and get recognized and get celebrated and get attention is to do something that sets you backwards and then recover from it. You end up in the same spot. You lose months or years and you expend a lot of resources to end up in the same spot, but you feel productive and other people recognize you. Right? So we fail to appreciate how important it is to not do or fall victim to bad things. And we are so driven by dopamine and feeling stuff that when bad things don't happen, we don't feel it. How do we get a feeling? We mess up and we recover from it. We make a mistake and then we make it right over and over and over. And we win over and over. I know people that have lost the same 50 pounds 10 times. And every time it gets celebrated. It's years and years and years of really hard work and effort and a lot of celebration and a lot of resources go into rewarding this behavior to be in the same exact spot, but a little bit worse off each time because, as we know, every time you diet, every time you break a complex system and fix it, it becomes more difficult to make progress forward. Every time you diet, your metabolism downregulates, so it becomes harder to make progress forward. So the obvious option for people that want to feel productive and the obvious option for people that want attention and rewards is to just keep making the same mistake over and over and recovering from it. Right? So you have a friend recovered from a drug addiction. That is a huge, huge, huge win. They should be celebrated. The insidious thing, the problem is we're not celebrating our friends that never got addicted to anything in the first place. Does that make sense? So we need to learn in order to follow these directions for acting like an adult or don't act like an asshole. We need to learn to appreciate when bad things don't happen because you're kind of an a-hole if you let yourself subconsciously or otherwise let bad things happen to yourself so that you can recover from it and get celebrated. You're kind of an a-hole. You really are. Not intentionally. That's okay. I'm an a-hole all the time unintentionally. I don't wake up in the morning to think about how to be an a-hole, but it happens. We just want to recognize it quicker and stop that behavior quicker, right? So instead of 6 months of being an a-hole, we do it for 3 days. We catch ourselves and we adjust course, right? So I do think that appreciating when bad things happen. How do we learn how to avoid bad things and also appreciate them? Again, frameworks. A little bit of introspection, a little bit of observation, the window in the mirror thing, right? All things that we teach in depth in the CCA, but I'm going to just blow over some stuff today because the biggest risk of all, and this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. This is all tomorrow. Tomorrow's probably the most important thing that if nothing else, if you can plant the seed of what we're talking about tomorrow, you will just make better decisions, even subconsciously. I can almost guarantee that. I think some people won't pay attention. But if you can just get the seed planted that we talk about tomorrow, you will unintentionally, subconsciously orient toward more behavior that has a higher efficacy, meaning getting closer to what you want, right? The biggest risk of all is not getting the things that you want most out of life, the things that truly matter to you. Okay, and again, I'll dive into this tomorrow, and this is my opinion, of course. But you could say like, oh, it's a big risk not saving your money. But if the evidence suggests, and we logic and we reason and we look at every possible angle, if the evidence suggests that if we take our money and we put it under our mattress where we feel like it's the safest, we will never get what we want, then that is actually the riskiest thing to do. You are increasing the probability you don't get what you want by doing the least risky thing by general consensus. Okay, so the biggest, we can't really measure risk entirely, like quantify it. We can't quantify it by saying, well, look, if you play Russian roulette, which we'll talk about today, if you're playing Russian roulette, that's very, very high risk. And yeah, that's true. But this has never been the case in the history of mankind, I don't think. But if all the evidence all the evidence, the real evidence suggests that the only way to somehow get what you want is to play one round of Russian roulette, and there's no other option, then not playing is actually the riskiest thing of all. Now, because that's not true for anybody, playing Russian roulette is probably the riskiest thing to do, right? But we have to understand that risk is weighed, in my opinion, of course, risk is weighed against what we actually want. What is incredibly risky for me might be far less risky for you based on where we're at and what we want. Does that make sense? This means we have to keep an orientation. We have to be crystal clear on defining. We talked about it yesterday, our profit priorities. What are we actually trying to accomplish? Because taking a tiny bit of risk for way more money could still be a huge risk. You could be able to fund everything you want in life. Okay? Imagine this. You can fund everything that you want in life right now. And this opportunity comes by and it's relatively low risk with a huge upside. The asymmetry is to the upside. But because you can have everything that you want right now, that is an incredibly risky play. It just increases the probability, even if it's small. There's a small increase in probability that you don't get what you want. On the flip side, if I'm pretty far away from getting what I want, and I could take a little bit of risk and potentially close the gap entirely, then this is not a risky thing for me at all. Does that make sense? You can let me know in the comments. Because there's just a lot of stuff that like people go, nope, I analyzed this, it's too risky. It's like, are we weighing that against what we want? Oh, this is relatively low risk. Look how much upside there is for relatively little downside, all things considered. Well, are we considering the most efficient path to what we have predefined is important to us? I hope that makes sense. We'll dive into that tomorrow. Okay, so here's the directions for acting like an adult or don't act like an asshole toolbox. This is a new tool, and this is a very difficult one for people. Do not go on a crusade. You ever watched a movie where there's like a superhero? I'm trying to think. Captain Marvel is a good one, where they realize somewhere like in the beginning, middle, or end, they realize like, oh shit, I've been on this crusade killing people. If you ever saw Hercules with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, it's another one. Oh, this is embarrassing. I was on the wrong side. I thought I was a good guy. Turns out I'm not. Kind of look like an a-hole, right? So we need, again, some level of discernment to make sure that I don't think anybody should go on a crusade, but let's make sure at least if we're going to go on a crusade, we're on the right side of it. Okay? It's very, very difficult to do because if you are familiar, this is Cartman's triangle. This is the drama triangle. It's very addicting. Here's why. Everybody's mad at the victims. Stop being a victim. That's very true. You should probably stop being a victim. You can see here, PD is all of them. He's a hero, victim, villain. Me, all three. And that's actually true. You can actually rotate spots on Cartman's triangle. You can Google it. It's Cartman, the Cartman drama triangle. Here's why it's so dangerous. This is where most crusades and witch hunts come from, and this is where most people don't have this toolbox. They act like an adult or an asshole because something doesn't go their way. Somebody made them a promise that very easily could have been called bullshit. With just a little bit of a toolbox, we could have said, I don't think I'm going to do that. But we didn't have a toolbox, so we fall victim. Okay? Now, we would probably, as a victim, go, maybe I should change my own decisions. That's actually more likely to happen in isolation. It might seem weird to you because once a victim, always a victim. But the reason, oftentimes, and you can go research this yourself. Don't take my word for it. Interpret it however you want to interpret it. The reason victims stay victims is because there's always somebody else that is avoiding their own issues but wants to be productive. This is most coaches and consultants, to be honest. Saviors, the people that go out and want to save everybody, martyrs. They say, I don't want to face my own issues, but if I can rescue this person, I can still feel productive. So this victim in isolation would eventually just start making better decisions, but they don't, because somebody comes along and says, yeah, this person, this promise is a villain. It's a persecutor. Now, I want to maintain my identity as a rescuer so I can feel productive and avoid my own issues. And you want to maintain your position as a victim so you can blame somebody else. So let's band together and let's blame somebody. Most villains. You ever seen movies about witch hunts, like Salem witch trials, and be like, wow, I can't believe these idiots actually burned innocent women. And they all got together and, this person got like leprosy or some like sexually transmitted disease, or probably something they did to themselves. But hey, let's blame somebody. Witches. Right? And as long as this person's along to support them and burn them, everybody feels productive. And we're burning innocent women at the stake here. We watch this stuff on TV and we say, wow, how stupid were those people? I cannot believe so many innocent women died so that these two identities could be maintained by this type of person. And yet we still do that today. It's a little bit more insidious. It's a little bit more under the radar. This is the drama triangle, and we live in it because we allow ourselves to be victims, or we're looking to rescue people. And when we rescue people, we aren't leaders. Disney story arc, yep. Right? We aren't leaders where we say, hey, listen, victim, you probably should develop a toolbox to not get duped or to not dupe yourself, so that we don't band together and start going on witch hunts, going on these crusades, and yet this is what we continue to do. The rescuer and the victim, 99% of the time in the real world, are the a-holes. They are, because if a scammer comes along most of the time and presents something that's very, very appealing, it takes one or two diagnostic conceptual tools to recognize they're full of shit and not do what they recommend, not buy shit from them, right? So if people knew how to not be an a-hole by avoiding bad things, having a little bit of a toolbox, they wouldn't have to be victims. Rescuers would have nobody to rescue. Rescuers have to face their own shit. Victims would improve their diagnostic capacity, and persecutors would not profit, and they would therefore go away. And persecutors don't always profit. Sometimes we just find, again, Salem witch trials. Sometimes we just need somebody to blame. Right? So the way that we don't be an a-hole is we step out of this triangle. We step out of it. Okay, I hope that makes sense. You can go down that rabbit hole. Karpman's drama triangle. So before we go on a crusade as a villain or a rescuer, let's make sure we're not going to look like a dingleberry at the end of it all. Right? A lot of times we are the idiots going, wow. People, if people could watch us on TV and see the whole picture, they'd be like, what are these idiots doing? I cannot believe that they're just acting this way. It's absurd. And so, like, let's pretend like we are on live television, and let's try to be a little bit less of an a-hole. Let me explain how. Now, let me give you some tools that I like to use. Okay, the way we engineer luck, which is what this is all about, is we avoid, or at least able to identify bullshit. Because if we can identify bullshit, we don't have to be a victim, and we don't have to be a rescuer. We can maybe get in rescuer mode for a moment, identify a victim, and say, you know what? Let's examine the decision that you made. And we can turn from a rescuer to a leader. Right? So let's talk a little bit about identifying some bullshit. One of my favorite books of all time is called Filters Against Folly. Filters Against Folly. And I'm going to zoom through this. There's three lenses through which Garrett Hardin recommends we view the world. And most people start or stop at the literate. Okay? Literate being something like, no, I promise this melts body fat better than anything in the world. It torches body fat around the thighs. Oh, that's really appealing. People buy. People fall for that. People fall for words. They also fall for graphics. Okay, and I'll share a little bit about that too. They also fall for graphics. So what was said? That's number one, or what was shown. Now, because it's 2021, almost 2022, we consider almost everybody literate, because even if you cannot read audiobooks, TV, it's all words that are being consumed at scale. So what was said? Torches body fat. Scientist finds herb that torches body fat. Okay. We should lend nothing to the literate. It means nothing ever. And the other problem is there are the merely eloquent, the people that know how to use language to stop thought. There's a lot of people that are very good. They use words like non-negotiable. They say things like, you ever been in a conversation with somebody and they're like, they just say whatever. I can't even think of a good example. And you're like, what? Okay, but what do you mean by that? And they go, you know what I mean. It's self-evident. You know what I'm talking about. These are words to prevent them from having to have more clarity or conciseness in their thought. Right? This is when somebody wants to stop discussion. They don't want to have discussion. They want to stop you from thinking. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. This person doesn't want you to know the truth. They want you to stop asking questions or stop thinking about what's being said. So you got to be very, very careful that we don't. These are called thought stoppers or conversation stoppers. When something is indeed very quantifiable, and they go, "Oh well, I mean there's an infinite number of options." That means either I don't know, I haven't done the math, or I don't want you to know the real numbers. Right? So I say things like infinite number of options. There are things that are infinite. That's why we have the numerate. We say, okay, well, what are the numbers? Right? So, torches body fat. Torches body fat. New herb torches body fat faster than anything the world's ever seen. Words, they mean nothing. You buy that, you are putting yourself in a position to be an a-hole. Right? Because the question is, all right, well, let's say, how much relative to what? What tools did you use to measure this? What is the accuracy or the precision of these tools? What timeline are we talking about? Right? What are the numbers that go along with these words? What do they mean? Let's quantify some shit. Then, the echolate. Okay, so we have the literate, the numerate, and the echolate. And then what? The echolate asks, and then what? Literate says, what are the words? All right, those words sound good. Now, what are the numbers? In what order of magnitude? For how long? Relative to what? How is this measured? What is the accuracy of these numbers? What is the precision of these numbers? Those are different things. And the echolate says, all right, and then what? So I torch body fat. All right, the numerate. Average of this many pounds in this many days. And the placebo group, we had a placebo group, had these results. Okay. Okay, and then what? Is it going to come back? Is it going to destroy my my metabolism? Is it going to make me act in a way that, as we discussed before, is it going to give my daughter like body dysmorphia because she's 8 years old? So if she has to watch me do this, is that going to mess her up for the rest of her life? Because, well, it's very likely to happen, and this does happen. I've seen it many times, is now you got a 45-year-old woman on a crusade trying to crucify social media, trying to crucify friends, parents of friends, the school system, because they have a daughter that has body dysmorphia and hates the way she looks. And the reality is this parent bought all of these torches body fat lies for 10 years. So more than likely, she's on a witch hunt for something that she caused 10 years ago. That's being an a-hole. It is. Okay. So these are the things I strongly recommend filters against folly. We say, okay, what are the words? All right, that sounds good. Show me some numbers. Show me some timelines. Break this down for me. And I'm not a super granular guy. I just need broad strokes, personally. Okay, and then what? Right? Well, if you do it this way, you will sell twice as many people. Like, all right, show me the numbers. Okay, and then what? Do I have twice as many refunds? If I do it this way, do I have twice as many sales but 3 times as many refunds? End up worse off? These are things, right, that we can use to not look like a dingleberry on a crusade. So here's an example. And this is I'm just pulling out some examples from stuff that I put together like a mini curriculum like a year ago. This is Jacksonville. So let's say your daughter, and I say daughter because I imagine if I had a daughter, that is the thing I would be the most protective of. And I could be wrong, but something, let's say it's you, your wife, your daughter, your husband, your family member, your mom. You got a choice. Either go send them off to Jacksonville for school or send them off to Atlanta, Georgia. And you say, you know what, everything checks out. My number one, they're about the same, but my number one concern is safety, right? I want them to be in the safest place possible. And they go, okay. So somebody says, the place you're thinking about sending them in Jacksonville says, well, Jacksonville crime rates have gone down significantly. Look, here's every 5 years from 1967 to 2009. It has way less crime per capita, has less crime per square mileage than Atlanta does. And you say, okay, done. Thanks for those words. Well, it turns out that if you can see right here, let me make sure that you can see my screen the way I want you to see it. If you can see right here, this was the city limits of Jacksonville in 1967. And as you know, most of the crime happens in this metropolitan area, right? So, what Jacksonville has done is expand the city limits. This square footage, this square mileage right here, has a much higher crime rate than Atlanta. But because they have expanded the square footage of the city limits, right, the square mileage of the city limits, the crime per capita has gone down. So where you're actually sending your daughter is way more dangerous than Atlanta. Right, but the words sound so good. The words sound like, look at this. They said it's getting safer and safer and safer. Well, yeah. Not if you're sending your family member right into to here, right? Hopefully that makes sense. I don't think I have to explain how all this works. So you see things like this. Jacksonville's getting safer. Crime rate per capita is going down. That sounds good. Crime rate in this square mileage is going up. But easy solution, we just expand the city borders out, because there's a far less crime that happens outside of this metropolitan area. Well, if you do not think about these things, if you do not take some responsibility, and you send your loved one or you move to Jacksonville, and you realize, wow, this is way more dangerous than Atlanta. I mean, I visited there and it wasn't that bad. Really easy to go on a crusade. Really easy to play victim. You also made a really bad decision based on your number one priority, which was safety, according to this, right? So these are things we want to think of. What are the words? What are the numbers? And then what? Another one here. Food stamp fraud at all-time high. Is it time to end the program? It says right here, according to the USDA, $70 million of taxpayer money was wasted in 2016 due to food stamp fraud. A lot of people are I've seen this before. It's 2016. A lot of people calling end of food stamps. End of food stamps. You know, maybe that's a legitimate claim. But here's the thing. 70 million sounds like a lot of money. 0.2%. If you run the numbers, 0.2% of expenditures on food stamps in particular were wasted or fraudulent. 0.2%. Right? So it's a big number, but it's 0.2%. Retail averages 3% loss to fraud. Right? So like, oh, what are the words? Food stamp fraud at an all-time high. Oh no. Let's start a crusade against food stamps. This happens with Bitcoin. People are like, oh, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy. I like to consider myself green. Crusade against Bitcoin. The Christmas lights in December. Just in December. The power it requires to power, the electricity it requires to power just the Christmas lights is exponentially more than all Bitcoin mining for an entire year. Okay, right? Show me the numbers. Relative to what? In what timeline? Like these are just things to think about, or you end up on a crusade against Bitcoin because it's not green and you got, $5,000 of Christmas decorations on your house. That is being an asshole. Unintentionally, but you're being an asshole. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, another one. Cumulative iPhone sales. So this is graphics. I'm just showing you some stuff to think about here. Danger of graphics. And let me make sure that my screen is showing you what I want. Cumulative iPhone sales. This looks very good. Now, of course, iPhone ended up dominating the whole space. Right? This looks very good. But it's cumulative iPhone sales. This is using a graphic to try to trick our brains into thinking something is happening that is not happening. If I sell 100 of something today and 100 tomorrow, the cumulative sales is 200. Even if I only sold one next year, the cumulative sales would be 201. This graph has to go up. No matter what the numbers are, this graph is going to look favorable because it is cumulative iPhone sales. See how they're trying to pull a fast one on you here? Now what you can do is you can overlay the data, say, okay, cumulative iPhone sales, look, they've skyrocketed this. Like, cool. I get it. Show me more numbers. This isn't bad. And iPhone ended up being pretty okay. Apple ended up being pretty okay. I'm not saying that this graph showing exponential growth is a flat out lie. I'm saying it doesn't tell the story. They're trying to dupe you into a story that is inaccurate. Okay? Look, these are the quarterly sales. This tells a little bit of a different story. Look, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up again, it goes down again, it goes up again, it goes down again. This is a different story than this cumulative sales. What does that mean? That just means what is being said. Okay, just show me the numbers. Break it down for me. And then what? Especially when it comes to, hey, you should do this. Okay, and then what? Right? What are the second, third, and subsequent order consequences of marketing this way, of selling this way, of buying this thing, of using these supplements? Really important questions. Now, the last bit is I want to introduce this concept of inversion. We talk about it all the time. I just want to give a little bit of clarity on it. Randy Massengale, who also teaches CCA with us, he was senior advisor to Bill Gates in like the 90s, has this, like, you take common wisdom and you invert it. Okay, take common wisdom and invert it. Now, I just want to address something that really bothers me. I'm going to share with you guys. A lot of people go, oh yeah, invert. I understand. It's like Simon Sinek or someone goes, begin with the end in mind. And no, not the way I interpret it. Beginning with the end in mind is what we all do. When you look at this maze, you want to start it here and come out here. You are beginning with the end in mind, right? I want to lose 50 pounds, so I'm going to start this exercise program. You're beginning with the end in mind. Beginning with the end in mind it's not a bad idea. It's just not really a revolutionary idea. To invert or to back into something is to start here. So if you run through this maze, try this every time you see a maze. You can go this way, hit a dead end. Okay, wasted a bunch of resources. We can go this way, hit a dead end, all right? Like this is trial and error, right? Go this way, hit a dead end. Up this way, hit a dead end. This way, ooh, do I go up or down? I'll go this way, up, hit a dead end. That made it. Like, beginning with the end in mind. It's not really, that's what we do. That's having a goal. What we want to do is we want to invert. Work backwards. Seriously, buy a maze book and try this. Start at the end. You're going to get there a lot quicker. You're going to be able to draw a much straighter line. Get a maze book. Try it. So that's the difference. If you go, oh yeah, invert, I get it. Start with the end in mind. No, you don't get it. You don't. Everybody says, like, start with the end in mind, and then they try to start at the beginning. Silly. So let me explain. Let me show you a little bit about Russian roulette. So imagine for a moment, this is the danger. If you begin with the end in mind and you don't have the skill set of inverting something. And some people's brain do this naturally. When I see something, I see it forward and backwards. And that's just, for whatever reason, that's what I do. I can write forward and backwards at the same time with both hands. That's very natural for me. It's not natural for everybody. Some people do it way better than I do. We're basically saying, this is what we're super susceptible to. You should play Russian roulette. You should. You pay $10, and if you win, I give you $1 million. Here is a wall of people that all look like Leonardo DiCaprio for some reason. Here's a wall of people that have all played Russian roulette. They paid $10. They played and they won $10 million. Look how smart and successful these people are. We talked about this before, the decision-making quadrant. So here's my proof. Start with the end in mind, right? You want this. This is obviously the best way to get here because I have just shown you all of this proof of people that did this and got this. I've totally done this with mazes. It's about 40 to 70% faster than starting from the beginning. Yep. That was in the comments, by the way. Right? So this is what most people are selling, and this is how you're buying. And a lot of people are considering this diligence. Let me see a testimonial wall. Let me talk to your clients. Like, okay, I get you're doing your diligence, whatever. We take a tool, a method, a program, a belief, a religion, a political view, somebody else's agenda, and we allow them to show us, here are all the real world and historical evidence of things that you actually want. These are the people that used this tool or thing to get this outcome. Right? This is where we call bullshit, in my opinion. This is where we call bullshit on the directionality of this. Meaning anything. Let me give you an example. High ticket webinars. It's the only way to get rich. It's the fastest way. It's the best way. It's what wealthy people use to start. Whatever story that is. Now the details might change, but conceptually, high ticket webinars. That's the way to get rich. You want to have FU money. You got to run a high ticket webinar. You got to run Facebook ads. You got to take sales calls. Here's all the people that have used this method to get rich. Therefore, there is my evidence that this is the only way, this is the fastest way, this is the highest probability way. Well, there's a really easy way to invert this. Boop. Invert the directionality. Now, let's go find people that are the closest to having the things that you actually want. Let's say you want to actually be filthy rich. That does not super align with our methodology, but let's just say, well, here's the richest people in the world. Can we draw a line from Elon Musk's to Facebook ads? No. High ticket webinar? No. Okay. Jeff Bezos? Can we draw a line? Can we go, all right, so here's the real world evidence. I want to be like Jeff Bezos. Yeah, he used Facebook ads. No. He used the high-ticket webinar. He did high-ticket sales. He learned guilt and shame tactics. Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, Larry Page, Mark Zuckerberg makes a lot of money off you believing you need Facebook ads, but I never saw a high-ticket webinar to sign up for Facebook. Warren Buffett, Steve Ballmer, we can go on and on and on and on. And what we're going to see is that this statement falls apart in the face of real-world evidence, doesn't it? We can't start with this statement being true and then look for proof of outcome. We have to start with the outcome and then look for proof of this statement. And I don't see any, even if there were 10 people on here out of 100, we would then say, okay, 10 out of 100 people have used high-ticket sales and webinars. 10 out of 100. That still invalidates that it's the only way. 10% of people have done it means that 90% have it, which means this statement that this is the only way to do it is not true. Right? So we can take, what do I actually want? And we can start calling bullshit on these programs. You say, well, the only way you can make $10 million is to play Russian roulette. Here's a list of people that have played Russian roulette that have made $10 million. We go, well, let's pull up a list of people that have made $10 million. See if they've played Russian roulette. Boop. Invert the directionality. That statement's going to fall apart really quickly, too, in the face of real world and historical evidence. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments. Right? Already talked about that. Make sure you hit your 6-word updates today. I know some will catch replay. So we want to get good at inverting. We really want to look at the directionality. Say, okay, well, you're selling me the truth in this direction. Can I work from this direction and get back to here? And if I can, what does that tell me about the statement, right? Meaning if you state this is the fastest way or the only way, then that should show up when I invert the directionality of the statement. Right? So we call bullshit on the direction. Why? Because calling bullshit on people is not necessarily appropriate. Calling bullshit on entire political parties or religions, that's not going to get you anywhere. We want to call bullshit on the directionality so that we can determine whether or not we're going to look like a doofus when we start our crusade. Okay. So when we talk tomorrow about the highest risk is not getting the things that you want, this is where, so if you want to start a SaaS company in a niche, look for others who've already had success. If you can find people, study them. Not necessarily, this is not prescriptive, because we do a lot of things that have never been done before. That's kind of the point, right? We use a lot of pre-wired ideas. This isn't about how to step-by-step program how to get something. This is how to not fall for bullshit. Those are very different things. So I'm not saying if you want to start something, start here. Like, that's actually a good place. That I would stand behind that. I'm saying don't fall for bullshit. Those are different things, right? Step one, if you want to start a SaaS company in a niche that's very successful, before you start mapping out your plan, step one would be guard yourself from bullshit, right? That really is. Like, don't get duped. Don't dupe yourself. Because this is not about how to forge forward at maximum speed. It's about how to avoid bad things. How to avoid bad things. Right? So this is calling bullshit on somebody that says this is the only way to do it. You're like, I really thinking about doing this method or hiring this coach, and made a really compelling case that the only way to build a successful SaaS is this way. Well, all right, they're saying that this is the only way to achieve this. Invert it. Look for evidence of this. And does it stand? More than likely, this statement will fall apart. The parts of the statement only should. These are the parts of the statement that will probably fall apart. Most, fastest, They will, because those are things people want to sell you on. Right? So it's very, like, directionality is something humans struggle with, right? Like, a lot of times we think, oh, somebody's rich because they're famous. A lot of times, like Warren Buffett, Ed Milet, they got rich and then they got famous. So we get the directionality wrong. So we can even look at, like, okay, well, I really want to be famous, or I really want to be rich. The only way to do that is to do this. That's the statement I've been sold. Invert the directionality and do your homework. It's probably going to fall apart. Humans are very, very, we don't do directionality well. It's like tip of the iceberg stuff. We think what we see is step 1 in the process when it's really like step 10. Hopefully that all makes sense. That was a lot. But it's really important to me that if you can just call bullshit, which means you don't follow faulty beliefs for long periods of time. I said it in the beginning. I believe that if you are here and any of this makes sense to you, you have everything you need to get to where you want to be. You just can't fall for this, right? High ticket programs the only way. Facebook ads is the only way. Facebook ads is the only way to scale your business. Let's go to the Inc. 500. All right, Inc. 5000, whatever. All we need to do is find one, even though most of these are going to be on the list. We just have to find one that does not primarily use Facebook ads for growth, and it invalidates the statement that it's the only way. You will probably find dozens. But you only need one to invalidate the statement. That doesn't mean Facebook ads don't work. It means the person that is selling you is using language. This is the only way. I am telling you. It's the only way. It's non-negotiable. They are trying to use language to stop you from thinking about what they are saying or what you do next. Right? Facebook ads is the only way to grow a company. Well, if one person on the Inc. 5000 is not using Facebook ads primarily to grow their company, it's invalidated. Doesn't mean Facebook ads work. It means we're calling bullshit on this statement that it's the only way. And the person that is selling that to me is discredited because they don't have the ability to use language to let you know it may be one of the best ways given where you're at or you want to be and your particular offer. That's a different thing than the only way, right? So we call bullshit on this right here. We discredit the person selling it because if nothing else, they do not have the ability to effectively articulate what they are trying to say. That means they probably don't know what they're trying to say, or they do know what they're trying to say, which means they're intentionally misleading you to benefit themselves, right? So a bullshitter either doesn't know better or knows better but doesn't want you to know what they know. They're not always malicious. Malice and incompetence look identical. A liar is malicious. A bullshitter either doesn't know and doesn't want you to know that they don't know, so they make statements like that, or they know and they don't want you to know what they know, right? Just identifying bullshit and disqualifying people and not giving any credit. Say, this is the only way to do it. Well, if I look at the 5,000 fastest growing companies, which is what I aspire to do, actually most of them don't run Facebook ads. And even if 85% of them did, it still invalidates the statement that it's the only way. That is where we call bullshit. Right? Because we just invert the directionality and we can discredit that statement immediately. I hope that makes sense. Hope that's useful. Well, tomorrow's going to really be the the big loop opener, and then moving on next week, we're gonna have more dialogue. Open up a Zoom, probably do some Q&A, really talk about some of this stuff. And I do have a bunch of stuff because it's Nicsmas to give away, but I want to get through all this stuff first. Like I said, I don't want people showing up just to get free shit. So whoever makes it this far, you'll be in a good place. Just think about these things. Like, these are just things that once we see it, we know, right? But, you know, especially you're in crypto, you see a chart like this and you're like, whoa, and your brain starts doing things that don't make any sense. We have to stop. So cumulative phone sales gone up 20,000%. Like, hey, what does that mean? Right? And then what? If we could probably overlay this onto diffusion of innovations and kind of figure out when the adoption rate will continue to go up, because it has to, but the total adoption will go up, the all-time sales, but the adoption rate will actually curve back down, because what we know in diffusion of innovation right? This is why we have a toolbox. I don't know why people get so surprised by things. What we know is that the total adoption will continue to go up. That's this line right here. That's what they're showing in that graph. But they want you to believe it's the rate of adoption, right? We know that the rate of adoption cannot go up forever. Eventually, half the population has the thing. So, like, you cannot just continue to have more and more and more people on average adopt it over the previous month, because you start running out of people, right? That's why we have a toolbox. If you want to learn about that toolbox, you should probably hang out in Nicsmas and join the CCA. Hit the Twitter, hit the 6-word update. It was nice and quick today because it is Sunday. I want to give you guys your day back. I just hope that there's something helpful in here that helps you realize, like, how easy it is to get bullshitted, how much we want to be bullshitted. We really do. How much we want to advocate responsibility to others. So, you said Jacksonville was the safest, so this is your fault. No. Get out of the drama triangle. Get out of the drama triangle by knowing how to figure stuff out on your own. Don't be an a-hole requires thinking for yourself. Letting other people think for you, you will, as a third-party observer to a third-party observer, look like an a-hole. Right? So don't put this on. Don't go putting all your resources into trying to cancel Bitcoin because it conserves so much energy, or it wastes so much energy, while your house is lit up, you know, you see it 5 blocks down with Christmas lights. Like, that makes you an a-hole because you just don't ask questions. Waste a lot of energy on things that don't matter. And we already talked about energy conservation. All that matters is putting energy into things that get you closer to where you want to be. And the best way to do that is avoid bad things and learn how to invert. We are not inverting things to craft a plan. That is possible. Okay? We only invert to craft a plan when the answers are not obvious. So here's the one-liner. When the answer is not obvious, you invert. If the answer is obvious, you don't have to do anything. The answer is obvious. But we invert to call bullshit. We invert the directionality of the cause and effect, and it will quickly discredit. We will be able to watch these arguments fall apart. And if the argument is falling apart, the person making the argument is either a liar or a bullshitter. Now, a liar is malicious. A bullshitter does not have to be malicious. They could just be incompetent. We want to look out for people that say, you know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean. No, you know, it's self-evident. You know what I'm talking about, right? When they shove it down your throat like you're supposed to read their mind, they're trying to stop your thoughts. They're not trying to have a productive conversation, trying to stop a conversation, make you feel stupid for not reading their mind so that they don't have to quantify anything they're saying. This happens in groups all the time. Crypto groups I'm in sometimes. I'm like, look, I want to have this conversation, but I'm not sure what you're saying. You know what I'm talking about. That's a bullshitter, intentional or not. That is somebody that either doesn't know what they are talking about and therefore cannot quantify it, or they know what they're talking about and they don't want other people to see it quantified. Right? You know what I'm talking about. It's evident, right? What they don't do is like what I'm trying to do with Nicsmas is show you like examples. Does this make sense? Let me try and draw a picture for you. Let me try to make this clear and concise. You can poke holes in my criteria here because you know my criteria. I can't just say, like if I just said right here, you know, when people say stuff and they don't really quantify it, you know what I'm talking about. Then there's numbers. You know, when they give you some numbers, they don't make any sense. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about. Then the second, third, subsequent order consequences. If you don't know what that is, then you're stupid, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't ask me questions. That's me using the literate to stop your own thought. Right? So just look out for those things, because if you avoid bad things, you will have exponentially more resources to move forward. Whether people know how to celebrate it or not, that's completely irrelevant. Appreciate y'all. Drop your 6-word update on the Twitter. I will post it in the Telegram, and share some of your biggest takeaways too, because this was a lot. It's not an easy thing to talk about calling bullshit, because what we inevitably realize is there are times in our lives, myself included, no doubt, like, God damn it, we were assholes. We were bullshitters. We didn't have the clarity of thought. We get really mad at people when we say, you know what I'm talking about, and don't realize that those are thought stoppers. We're super insecure about what we're talking about, so we have to tell them that they should know what we're talking about so we don't have to quantify it, because we're not so sure if we really can quantify what we're saying. Right? So it's tough to present this, because inevitably a whole bunch of you are going to realize, oh, you've unintentionally been bullshitting on some things, just like I have. That's why I do stuff like this. It forces me to just be a better human, and I'd share it with you guys. Hope it's helpful. Have a great Sunday. Yes, go Seahawks, but they play on Tuesday for some god-awful reason. I'm going to go have some brunch and play with my dogs.